Okay, so are you ready to dive into some vampire lore today?
Always ready for a deep dive into the world of vampires.
Yeah, our listener this time around sent in a whole bunch of Wikipedia excerpts on vampire folklore from all around the world.
Sounds like they want us to tease apart the global variations on this myth.
Right, exactly. And, everyone knows Dracula,
Of course.
but that whole Transylvanian cape-wearing image,
Yeah.
that's a pretty recent invention,
Yeah, 18th century Europe.
exactly 18th century Europe. But the idea of blood-drinking beings goes back way further.
Yeah, way, way back.
It's like this primordial fear.
It's a fear that's embedded in us somehow.
Totally. So where should we start this deep dive?
Well, we could start with ancient Mesopotamia,
Okay, Mesopotamia.
with the demoness Lilith.
Ooh, Lilith. That's a good place to start. What's her story?
Lilith appears in Babylonian and Hebrew traditions,
Okay.
often depicted as a demon who preys on babies
Oh, no. Oh.
and drinks their blood.
Okay, so she's like the ultimate bogeyman.
Pretty much.
Hmm?
And in Hebrew tradition, what makes her so evil is that she's gunking dietary laws by drinking blood.
Oh, wow. So it's not just the baby killing, it's the breaking of religious law as well.
Exactly. It's like a double whammy of evil.
Wow. I wonder if there were ways that people tried to protect themselves from Lilith.
Well, they did use amulets
Okay.
around babies' cradles to ward her off.
That's so interesting. It's like such a visceral fear.
Totally.
So Mesopotamia's got Lilith. What other ancient examples are there?
Well, ancient Greece had its own share of bloodthirsty figures.
Okay.
We have Empuzolamia and the Striges.
Okay, so not quite undead vampires like we think of today.
Not undead, no,
Okay.
but they definitely had a taste for blood.
All right, so who are these characters? What are they all about?
Well, Empusa, for instance, was said to be the daughter of the goddess Hecate,
Okay.
known for her shape-shifting abilities.
So she could, like, lure people in by looking like someone else.
Exactly. She'd lure men to their deaths
Oh, no.
and then reveal her true monstrous form.
Ah, so it's like a cautionary tale about trusting appearances.
You got it.
And what about Lamia?
Lamia is a tragic figure.
Okay.
Legend has it, she was a lover of Zeus.
Oh, no, this is not going to end well, I can tell.
And Hera, driven by jealousy,
Mm-hmm.
killed all of Lamia's children.
Oh, that's awful.
And so Lamia, driven mad by grief, transformed into a child-eating monster.
Oh, so she's kind of a sympathetic monster in a way.
Right, her thirst for blood is fueled by this unimaginable loss.
So she's not like purely evil.
No, not purely evil, more like a victim of circumstance.
And then you mentioned the Striges.
Yes, the Striges.
So who are they?
They were bird-like creatures
Okay.
that preyed on both children and adults.
And what did they do?
They feasted on their flesh and blood.
All right, so like a more monstrous version of a vampire bat or something.
Exactly, and their legend didn't stay confined to Greece.
Oh, really? Where else did it go?
They later appeared in Roman mythology as the Strix.
Okay, so the myth is spreading already.
Yeah, it seems like it.
And were there any other ancient cultures with similar beliefs?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like where?
Ancient India, for instance.
Okay, India, what did they have?
They had the Venalas.
Vetal. Okay, what are they like?
They were these ghoul-like beings
Hmm.
that inhabited corpses.
Okay.
Then they could possess the living.
Oh, that's creepy. That idea of like losing control of your own body.
Totally. It's like the ultimate violation.
And were there any other Indian vampire-like creatures?
Yeah, there were also the Pishacha,
The Pishacha.
which were spirits of the insane with a thirst for blood.
So it's like this fear of blood-drinking creatures was all over the ancient world.
It was pretty much everywhere.
Wow. Okay, so that's the ancient roots.
Right.
So how do we get from there to like the 18th century vampire panic in Europe?
Well, it seems like the vampire myth just exploded in 18th century Europe,
Particularly.
southeastern Europe, and Transylvania.
Okay, so we're talking like full-on torches and pitchforks kind of thing.
Full-blown panic. People were genuinely terrified of vampires.
Suppose they were taking it very seriously.
Oh, yeah, they were digging up graves, staking corpses, anything to stop the threat.
And it wasn't just like a couple of isolated incidents.
No, it was widespread.
Wow, and even government officials got involved, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What were some of the big events that really kicked off this whole panic?
Well, there were two cases in Serbia,
Okay.
Peter Blagojevich and Arnold Pyle.
Those names sound familiar. I feel like I've heard those before.
And their cases were officially documented.
Oh, wow. So this is like legitimate in their eyes.
Exactly. It made it all seem much more real and much more terrifying.
Wow. Okay, so what happened in those cases?
Well, take Blagojevich.
Okay.
He died at 62,
Mm-hmm.
but then supposedly came back from the dead, asked his son for food.
And then what happened?
His son refused.
And then?
The son was found dead the next day.
Oh.
And Blagojevich went on to attack neighbors,
No.
many of whom died from blood loss.
So this is a full-blown vampire attack.
Pretty much.
Okay, and what about Arnold Pale?
Pale was an ex-soldier turned farmer who claimed to have been attacked by a vampire.
Oh, really?
Years before his death. But when he died, people in his village started dying mysteriously. They were convinced that Pale was back for revenge.
I see.
And when authorities exhumed Pale's body, they claimed to find evidence that supported the vampire theory.
Like what?
Well, his body hadn't decomposed as expected. There was blood in his mouth.
Oh.
And his nails and hair appeared to have grown.
Oh, wow. So they're seeing what they want to see.
It seems that way.
And so this just fueled the panic even more.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So was there anyone at the time who was trying to debunk all of this?
There were some, but it gets a bit complicated.
How so?
Dom Augustin Calmet,
Okay.
a respected French scholar, wrote a treatise on vampires in 1746.
Okay.
And while he was sort of ambiguous in his conclusions, his work was seen by many as confirmation that vampires were real.
Oh, wow. So even a scholar is kind of on the fence about this.
It seems that way. And even Voltaire.
Voltaire, the Enlightenment thinker.
Yes, even Voltaire.
Wow.
Seemed to believe in the possibility of vampires.
Okay, so even in the Age of Reason, these beliefs are still pretty strong.
They were definitely still around.
So how did this panic finally start to die down?
Well, thankfully, Empress Maria Theresa of Austria had had enough.
Okay.
She sent her personal physician, Gerhard van Swieten, to investigate these vampire cases.
And what did he find?
Well, van Swieten concluded that vampires didn't exist.
Oh, thank goodness.
And that the stories were rooted in misunderstanding superstition and phenomena like premature burial and contagious diseases.
Oh, so like a logical explanation for all of this.
Exactly.
And what did the Empress do?
Well, Empress Maria Theresa then enacted laws prohibiting the opening of graves and the desecration of bodies.
So she's trying to stop this panic from spreading.
Exactly.
Interesting. And did it work?
Eventually, yeah, the hysteria did die down.
Right.
The legend persisted.
Of course.
Artists, writers, and storytellers kept exploring the vampire myth.
And shaping it into what we know today.
Exactly.
So it's like the panic is over, but the fascination is still there.
It seems that way. And that brings us to another interesting aspect of vampire lore.
Oh, okay. What's that?
Even within Europe, beliefs varied widely.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
Each region adding its own unique flavor to the myth.
Okay, so let's take a tour of some of those regional variations.
Let's do it.
All right, I'm ready for a European vampire road trip.
All right, let's go. All right, so first stop on our European vampire tour.
Okay, hit me.
Albania.
Albania, okay.
Home of the Striga.
The Striga. Okay, what's so special about the Albanian vampire?
Well, the Striga is a witch who can transform into an insect.
Okay, so like a bug?
Yeah, a moth, a fly, maybe even a bee.
And she drinks blood in bug form.
That's right. She drains her victims. But here's the catch. Only the Striga herself can cure the victim she's drained.
Oh, so she's got the power to heal as well.
Exactly. It's a fascinating twist.
It's like she's both the problem and the solution.
Right. You got it.
That's a powerful concept.
Okay. Ready for our next stop?
Lay it on me.
Let's hop over to Greece.
Greece, okay.
And delve into the legend of the Vrykolakas.
The Vrykolakas, is this like a Dracula-type figure?
Not quite. Actually, the term Vrykolakas comes from the Slavic word for werewolf.
Oh, interesting.
But this creature is more like your typical European vampire.
Okay, and what's so spooky about the Greek vampire?
Well, they were believed to be indistinguishable from living people.
Oh, no. So you would never know who was a vampire.
Exactly. It's like a constant state of paranoia.
Very creepy.
Okay, next stop on our tour.
Yeah, where are we going?
North to Iceland.
Ooh, Iceland. The land of fire and ice.
Exactly.
Okay, and what kind of vampire awaits us in Iceland?
The Droger.
Droger. Okay, I like the sound of that already. What's their deal?
The Icelandic Droger is often translated as ghost.
Okay, so just a regular ghost?
Not quite. They were believed to be corporeal.
Corporeal?
Meaning they had a physical body.
Oh, so not so wispy and ethereal then?
No, not at all. In fact, scholars believe that the Dragers actually shares more similarities with Eastern European vampires than typical ghosts.
Oh, really? So more like a monster than a ghost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were thought to be driven by a need to harass the living,
Okay.
even driving them mad or killing them.
And why would they do that?
To create more Draeger.
Oh, so they're spreading the curse.
That's the idea. And the methods used to destroy them were very similar to vampire slaying techniques.
Oh, yeah, like what?
Decapitation, staking, things like that.
So it's like they're basically vampires, but they're called ghosts?
In a way, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, where to next?
Well, we can't miss Romania.
Romania, of course.
The land of Dracula.
All right, now we're talking the heart of vampire country.
Exactly.
Okay, so what kind of vampire are we dealing with in Romania?
Oh, the Strigoi.
The Striger. Okay, tell me everything.
What was fascinating about the Strigoi is that it could be either living or dead.
Okay, so both kinds of vampires.
Right. So a living Strigoi was basically a witch with 2 hearts or sometimes even 2 souls.
2 souls.
Yeah, one normal, one more sinister.
And what could they do?
Well, we could send their soul out at night to meet with other Strigoi.
So like a vampire club.
Basically.
Okay.
And they would drink the blood of livestock and sometimes even people.
So they're not just reanimated corpses, they're like living witches.
That's right. And then the dead Strigoi. They often targeted their living family members.
Oh, no. So it's like they come back to haunt their own families.
Exactly. It's pretty creepy.
So how did someone become a Strigoi?
There are lots of ways.
Okay, like what?
Well, being born with certain physical traits.
Oh, okay.
I call an extra nipple or even just extra hair.
Extra hair can make you a vampire.
That's right. Or being the 7th child of the same sex.
Okay.
Or being born prematurely. Or even having your mother encounter a black cat while pregnant.
Wow. So many ways to become a vampire.
It seems like it. And it didn't stop there.
Oh, there's more.
Dying an unnatural death or before baptism could also turn you into a Strigoi.
So it's like any disruption of the natural order of things.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so Romania's got some pretty intense vampire beliefs.
They definitely do.
Okay, we've done Albania, Greece, Iceland, and Romania. Where to next?
Let's head into Slavic Europe.
Slavic Europe. Okay, what's in store for us there?
The concept of living vampires.
Living vampires. Now that sounds interesting. How does that work?
Well, in Slavic folklore, some people were believed to have 2 souls.
Okay.
One normal and one, well, let's say a bit more sinister.
And what would the second soul do?
It could leave the body at night
Hmm.
and engage in all sorts of vampiric activities.
So they're like vampires, but they're still alive.
Exactly. It's like a double life.
A very dark double life.
That's one way to put it.
And were there any other unusual beliefs about vampires in Slavic Europe?
Well, one thing that stands out is the belief that vampires could appear as butterflies.
Butterflies, really?
Yeah, kind of a strange image, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Very unexpected.
Butterflies are often associated with transformation and the soul. So it's almost like the vampire, even in its monstrous form, retains a connection to something beautiful.
It's like a dark kind of beauty.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered Eastern and Southern Europe now. What about the rest of the continent?
Well, we can't forget about Ireland and Scotland.
Oh, Ireland and Scotland.
Where we find creatures like the Bolhan Sith and the Leannan She.
Okay, those names sound almost magical.
They're more like fairy spirits with vampiric qualities.
Okay, so not your typical blood-sucking monsters.
No, they're more seductive, dangerous, tied to themes of death and desire.
Sounds intriguing.
And they might have actually inspired some of the most famous vampire literature.
Oh, really? Like who?
Well, there's Sheridan Le Fanu, an Irish author who wrote some of the earliest vampire fiction.
Okay.
Like Carmilla, A Tale of a Female Vampire.
Okay.
That actually predates Dracula.
Wow. And was anyone else inspired by these creatures?
Oh, and of course Bram Stoker.
Bram Stoker, the author of Dracula.
The one and only.
Wow, so these ancient Celtic myths might have influenced the Dracula story that we know today.
It's very possible.
That's amazing. Okay, so we've pretty much covered all of Europe.
We've hit all the major spots.
I'm ready to go global.
You got it. Let's expand our horizons and see what vampire-like creatures lurk in other parts of the world.
All right, vampire folklore from around the world. Bring it on. Okay, so we've covered Europe pretty thoroughly.
I think we hit all the highlights.
From ancient Greece to Romania.
And everywhere in between.
But our vampire journey doesn't end there.
No way. There are so many more creatures to explore.
All right, I'm ready to see what other vampire-like beings are out there.
Well, let's start by venturing into Africa.
Africa. Okay, what kind of vampires are we talking about here?
The Ashanti people of West Africa tell tales of the Asanbosum.
Asanbosum. Okay, that's a new one for me. What makes it so special?
Well, this creature is said to dwell in trees.
In trees.
Yeah, and it has iron teeth.
Iron teeth? Oh, that's not good.
Nope. And it lies in wait for its victims.
So it's like an ambush predator
Exactly. It snatches them from below.
with its iron teeth.
Well, it actually uses its long hooked fingers to grab them.
Oh, so it's like a creepy tree monster.
Pretty much.
So we've got tree-dwelling vampires in Africa. Any other interesting ones?
Well, the U people also in West Africa have the ads.
The ads? Okay, what's that one all about?
Now, this one's a bit different. It can actually take the form of a firefly.
A firefly. That's kind of cute.
Not so fast, this firefly is a bloodsucker.
Oh no, a vampire firefly.
Exactly.
And what does it do? Does it like fly around and bite people?
It's said to hunt children, actually.
Oh no, that's terrible.
It uses its deceptive firefly form to lure them in.
Wow, that's so creepy.
It is pretty unsettling.
So we've got tree monsters and firefly vampires in Africa. What about the Americas?
The Americas have their own share of fascinating vampire-like creatures.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, in Trinidad, there's the Suquil.
Sukiyo. All right, I'm liking these names.
She's described as an older woman who sheds her skin at night.
Sheds her skin. Ew.
Yeah, and she transforms into a ball of fire.
A ball of fire. Wow, that's a visual.
I know, right? And in this form, she could fly around.
So she's like a flaming vampire.
Pretty much, and she enters homes.
How?
Through any crack or crevice.
Oh no, so there's no escaping her.
Nope, she can get in anywhere, and then she sucks the blood of her victims.
While they're sleeping?
Exactly.
Oh, that's terrifying. I would never sleep again if I lived in Trinidad.
Better blame you. It's a pretty scary thought.
So is there any way to protect yourself from the sukkant?
One popular method was to hang aloe vera backwards behind or near a door.
Aloe vera, really?
Yeah, it was believed to ward her off.
Huh, that's interesting. Okay, so aloe vera for vampires, who knew?
You learn something new every day.
That's for sure. Okay, so Trinidad's got the fiery sukkant. What about other parts of the Americas?
Well, Colombia has two, the tunda and the patasola.
Okay, tunda and patasola, what are they like?
The tunda is a shapeshifter
Okay.
who lures children away to devour them.
Oh no, not the children.
Yeah, it's a pretty dark story.
And what about the patasola?
She's a beautiful woman
Okay.
who transforms into a monster with one leg.
A monster with one leg? That's creepy.
I know, right? And she attacks those who venture into the forest alone.
So it's like a warning against going into the forest by yourself.
Exactly. You never know what might be lurking out there.
All right, well, I'm definitely staying out of the Colombian forests.
Probably a good idea.
So that's the Caribbean in South America. What about North America? Any vampire-like creatures up there?
Well, we have to remember that the Americas are home to many indigenous cultures,
Oh, right, of course.
and they have their own beliefs about supernatural beings.
So are there any indigenous vampire myths in North America?
Not quite vampires, but there are creatures that share some similarities.
Okay, like what?
Well, the Mapuche people of southern Chile believed in a blood-sucking snake called the puchin.
A blood-sucking snake.
That's pretty creepy.
It is, and it's interesting how the snake is often associated with evil and danger in many cultures.
Right, like the serpent in the Garden of Eden.
Exactly, it's a very primal fear.
And what about other indigenous cultures in the Americas? Any other vampire-like creatures?
Well, in Aztec mythology, we find the Cihuateteo.
This is Huatateo. Yeah, I've heard of those. Aren't they those skeletal women who steal children?
That's them, and they were thought to be the spirits of women who died in childbirth.
Oh, wow. So their story is even more tragic.
It is. They're driven by their grief and anger.
And they take it out on children.
It's a pretty dark myth.
It is, yeah, very unsettling.
And they would also seduce living men.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and drive them mad in the process.
So they're like dangerous seductresses.
Exactly. They're powerful figures.
Wow. Okay, so we've got blood-sucking snakes and child-stealing spirits in the Americas. What about Asia?
Asia is a whole other world of vampire-like creatures.
Okay, I'm ready for it. What have you got?
Well, in India, we have the Bhuta.
The Bhuta. Oh.
Okay, what's that?
It's basically the soul of a person who died an untimely death.
So like a restless spirit. Exactly, and it wanders around animating corpses and attacking the living.
Oh, so it's kind of like a zombie.
Yeah, there are definitely some similarities.
But also with some vampiric elements.
Right, it's a fascinating blend of different supernatural traditions.
So it's like a zombie-vampire hybrid.
Pretty much.
Wow, India's got some creative monsters.
They do, and it doesn't stop there. Southeast Asia is full of vampire-like creatures, too.
Okay, Southeast Asian, bring it on.
Well, the Penanggalan of Malaysia is a truly chilling figure.
Penang. Okay, what's so chilling about it?
Imagine this, a woman whose head detaches from her body at night. When her head comes off. It does. And it trails her internal organs as she flies around.
Oh, that's disgusting and terrifying.
I know, right? And she's searching for blood.
Of course she is. And who does she target?
usually pregnant women and new mothers.
Oh, that's awful. It's like a monstrous perversion of motherhood.
It is a very disturbing image.
Okay, so detached heads in Malaysia. Any other creepy creatures in Southeast Asia?
Indonesia has the Pontianak.
The Pontianak. Okay, what's her story?
She's a woman who died during childbirth.
Another tragic figure.
Yeah, and she becomes undead, seeking revenge on the living.
And how does she attack people?
Well, she's often depicted as a beautiful woman with long black hair,
Okay.
but she has a hole in the back of her neck.
A hole in her neck. What's that about?
That's how she sucks the blood of her victims, usually children.
Oh, that's just awful.
It is a pretty gruesome image.
So is there any way to protect yourself from the Pontianak?
Well, it was believed that filling the hole in her neck with her own hair would drive her away.
Her own hair, really?
Yeah, and to prevent corpses from becoming Pontianaks, people would fill their mouths with glass beads, put eggs under their armpits, and stick needles in their palms.
Wow, that's a lot of precautions.
It seems like they were really taking this thread seriously.
Okay, so we've covered Africa, the Americas, Southeast Asia. That leaves one more continent, China.
Ah, yes, China, home of the Jiangshi.
The Jiangshi. Okay, lay it on me. What's the Chinese vampire like?
Well, it's often called the Chinese hopping vampire.
Hopping vampire. Okay, this I gotta hear.
So the Jiangshi is a reanimated corpse.
Okay. So your typical zombie situation.
Kind of, but it's brought back to life through magical means.
Okay, so a little more mystical.
Exactly. And it's said to have long fingernails,
Okay.
greenish-white, furry skin.
Furry skin. Okay, this is getting weird.
And here's the kicker. It moves by hopping.
Hopping, really?
Yeah, stiff-legged with its arms outstretched.
Oh, wow. That's a visual I'm not going to forget anytime soon.
It's a pretty unique image.
It is so. Why hopping? Why not just, like, fly or something?
Well, according to legend, the Jiangshi hops because rigor mortis has set in.
Oh, so its limbs are stiff.
Exactly. And those long fingernails,
Yeah.
they're probably based on the way fingernails appear to grow on corpses as the flesh recedes.
Oh, that's kind of morbid.
It is, but it's interesting how these myths often draw inspiration from real-world observations.
Right, even if those observations are a little creepy.
Yeah, but that's part of what makes them so fascinating.
So what does the Jiangshi want? Is it just blood like other vampires?
It's a bit more complicated than the Jiangshi is said to absorb the life essence or ki from its victims.
The key. Okay, so it's like a spiritual vampire.
In a way. And it's believed to be created when a person's soul fails to leave their body after death.
So it's like a trapped soul.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so restless and dangerous.
Wow. Okay, so we've gone from tree monsters to firefly vampires to hopping corpses. This has been quite a journey.
It has. We've really explored the global diversity of vampire myth.
We have, and it's incredible how these beliefs have persisted for so long and in so many different cultures.
Yeah, it really is. It speaks to some fundamental human fears and fascinations.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this episode, I just want to thank you for taking us on this wild ride through vampire folklore.
It was my pleasure. I always love talking about vampires.
And to our listeners out there, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the undead.
We hope you enjoyed it.
And remember, if you hear a hopping sound outside your window tonight, it might just be a Jiangshi.
Sweet dreams. Tell us what you think about this episode. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.